I'd like to tell you the story of a fairyland. A story just as long as my hand. It all began in sand dunes, converting dust in fumes. So there landed an old man. In his hand, a circular fan. To listen to the story further, you must take a boat out to sea and wonder why, in the first place, did you commit this blunder?
Subansiri, the golden river, flowing down into the Assam valley, into the Brahmaputra from the neighboring hills, the hills of Arunachal, the land of the rising sun. Legend has it that the waters of the Subansiri carried gold that was sifted by the people living downstream. Today, the Subansiri waters do not carry gold sediments any longer, but they still have the potential to attract treasure hunters of a different kind. The kind who are not looking for gold, but for power. And the Northeast, which houses nearly 31% of the total water resources of India, is the choice destination. A 2000 megawatt mega dam is being built on the lower Subansiri by the National Hydel Power Corporation, one of the 3 projects planned on the river. It is 2.3 km upstream from the Gerukamukh village in the Dhemaji district of Upper Assam. The left bank of the dam will be in Assam and the right bank in Arunachal Pradesh. As per the current status, it is in fact taller than the high-profile Sardar Sarovar Dam on the Narmada River, which is attracting much mainstream attention. In this quiet corner of an unquiet frontier, the lower Subansiri Dam is being built to serve a few vested interests.
This whole power thing has become such a big vested interest. Now you have these plans for huge dams. Okay, development should be there. We're not against development. But development for whom? If you are going to create these huge power projects like Subansiri, do these people understand the geology of this region? Now if you speak to someone like M.N. Saikia, one of the biggest geoscientists in this region, he'll tell you every year there are 200 microtremors in the Assam-Arakan geocycling. And any time you can have an Assam 1950 style of an earthquake. But just imagine, huge dam, so much of water stored there, suddenly there is a big earthquake, the dam falls apart as a result of it, the water gushes down. How many millions are going to be wiped out in that kind of a disaster? Now you can always say that's not likely to happen. Nobody believed that the tsunami in Andamans or in rest of Asia was likely to happen.
What is the focal point here? We all are bound to think about it is at the cost of politicians' interest, the national government's interest, the power mafia's interest, the steel mafia's interest, and so many international financial institutions are interested in funding them. We have seismological zone. It falls under the zone 5. We have very, very soft rock structure, sedimentary rock structure. There will be landslide, there will be muck accumulation. We have very ripe example of the Moor Dam who is choked. we have Loktak project which is choked, and further we are going to plan 100 and 100 of dams.
You know, this whole story of dams in Northeast, main problem is dams have generally been bad news in the region. The Dumur Dam in Tripura, Gomti Hydel project, how much electricity is it supposed to produce? 10 megawatt? Now it can produce barely 6 to 7 because of the siltation in the reservoir. How much land has it submerged? Almost 50,000 hectares of what was once prime agricultural land, totally in the hands of the tribal peasantry. Now, these people who have lost their land, first generation, they accepted it as bad news, fate. Second generation began to protest. Third generation took up weapons, went into the hills, challenged the state, and thought that all this has happened to them because of the incoming rush of refugees from across the border. So it took an ethnic dimension. So tribal, non-tribal, tribal-Bengali relations degenerated.
I just look at the 1950 Arunachal scare and the earthquake there and how it moved societies. I was talking to the Apatani settlers, how they moved down from the hills when the earthquake happened, and they still live that fear of moving down. And when you tell them about dams, they start understanding what water means, because they've seen that few survivors that I've talked to, they talk about water moving with earth. And there's a fantastic phrase one of them uses. It says, earth doesn't move, water moves the rest, it moves lives, it moves death.
এই ভূমিকম্পটো মানে বৰকৈ টানটো মানে 11টা বজাত ভূমিকম্প হল, এইটো মানে পৃথিৱীক ধ্বংস কৰি দিলে, বুজিছেন নাই? কাল মাটিক ওপৰ কৰিলে, ওপৰ মাটিক তল কৰিলে, মাছ গছ বন তৰুণ সব মাটি পাঠিলে, কৰি 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 যেতিয়া ভূমিকম্পটো হৈ গ'লতো তেতিয়া মানে সব বন হৈ গ'ল, গাড়ী মটৰ নাই, দ আছিলেতো, পানীটো একদম নিরাপত্তা পিওর, আর নদীটো চাপা, পানীটো চাপা। এই হেৰিটো বালুৰ মাছটো এই নদীৰ ওপৰৰ পৰা দেখিব পাৰিছিলে। কি মাছ? আৰি মাছ, কি মাছ? বেউ মাছ। এইফালে গৈছে, এইফালে গৈছে, এইফালে গৈছে, তেনেকুৱা দেখিবলৈ পাইছিল। এতিয়া চাওঁ মানে যেতিয়া 1950 চনৰ পৰা ভূমিকম্প হ'ল, তেতিয়া গোলা পানী আহিলে, তেতিয়াৰ পৰা এতিয়া গোলা পানীয়ে আহি আছে।
Well, I'm Dr. Jayanta Madhav, at present economic advisor to the Chief Minister of Government of Assam. Essentially, I'm an economist. I was working with the Asian Development Bank for 23 years, then was heading the Northeast Development Finance Corporation and a few others.
Right. Sir, we have the benefit of having a man like you on this, who understands the region, but has also seen the greater realities, perhaps the greater Asian reality. Dams have become, big dams have become a part and parcel of the Asia's changing economic landscape. Now, as far as all these big dam projects that the government of India has in mind, particularly in the upper part of Northeast now, Arunachal to be specific, but some other, what do you think of them as an economist and as a man from this region? Do you think they make economic sense?
Well, I would certainly say that they do make economic sense, and we have a vast resources, estimated from about 45,000 megawatts onwards. Real estimation has really not been done. And that, of course, depends on designs. India needs it, states needs it, and also that look at the economic development it will usher in, as well as the income that will give to the states who owns those dam sites. Take for example Arunachal. Arunachal has the biggest resources as far as the Northeast is concerned, and it is close to 30,000 megawatts, which cannot be ignored.
This power, what is going to happen to the power? They are claiming that they will produce 50,000 megawatt, whereas the whole Northeast by 2020 requires only 1800 to 1900 megawatt. Who will take this power?
সমগ্ৰ উত্তৰ পূৰ্বাঞ্চলত মাত্ৰ 1400 মেগাৱাট বিদ্যুৎ লাগে ভাৰত চৰকাৰে বনাবলৈ গৈছে উৎপাদন কৰিবলৈ গৈছে 50000 মেগাৱাট বিদ্যুৎ কি কাৰণে বাহিৰত বিদ্যুৎ বিক্ৰী কৰিব এই কোম্পানী বিলাকে এনএসপিসি নিচিনা সংস্থা বিলাকে যেন বৈদেশিক মুদ্ৰা অৰ্জন কৰিব কি কৰি আমাৰ নিচিনা মানুহ বিলাকৰ জীৱ বিলাক বন্ধ কৰি থৈ কালি তোমালোক মৰিলেও মৰিবা কিন্তু আমি আমাৰ পৰা এই টকাখিনি পাম
Where this power will go? This whole power is being planned for ASEAN power grid, where it will go via Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia to Thailand, and the whole revenue will be coming back to Delhi, and the government at Delhi will either repay the loans or they will use it for something else, maybe militarization in Northeast. This vicious cycle of producing power, making dams, producing powers, uprooting people, creating refugees, people become paupers on their own land.
India does need its power. India does realize that this is the only place that it can now get it out of, because Tamil Nadu and Karnataka are completely blocked out. They've saturated it with dams as they could. Now coming to that, when it goes to Arunachal, the biggest and the most immediate case is that of the lower Subansiri dam. The moment you look at it, you realize how entrenched the politics of that dam is.
The game that the development brigade is playing, the IMF, the World Bank at the top, the government of India and its institutions, and of course their flunkies in Northeast, they don't realize something, is that if you push this whole thing without making the local people a stakeholder, then unrest is going to be there. If unrest is there, then you'll bring in the army. Would India and the government that runs it like to be in a situation where you are taking away the resources of the region, you are getting electricity done there, you are destroying the local flora and fauna, you are displacing the local people. Maybe in Arunachal the numbers would be less, but nevertheless they would be there, tribal people displaced from their hearth and home. And last but not the least, the geoseismic thing. I mean, Arunachal may be fine, but if there's a disaster due to earthquake in one of these dams, Assam, large part of it is going to be wiped out. Then Mr. Manmohan Singh or Mr. Vajpayee, whoever rules India, can again stand up like Nehru in 1962 and say, I am leaving Assam to its fate.
Of course, there is legitimate concerns. So one is the displacement. The other one is the diversity, and then the third one is the earthquake and others. Now, question is that unfortunately, these areas are very sparsely populated. And what are we talking about? We are talking about few hundred peoples, not even thousands people, as far as the Arunachal is concerned. It is no difficulty to rehabilitate these people. I mean, land is no sparse there, and the same environment can be found, and other occupations even be given. So therefore, I do not think displacement is a big problem.
Take for example, Lower Subansiri, a 2000 megawatt dam. According to the EIA, it will displace only 38 families. Come on, do you expect me to believe that? All right, Arunachal is a sparsely populated state, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be that bad. So the people, there is already much unrest, unemployment, lack of development. Is this development? Whose development? Or is this going to be greater impoverishment and marginalization?
If you look at it, the courts have never said no to any dam in India. It's a history of Indian dams. It has not said no to Lower Subansiri also. But in order to pretend it's serving the cause of ecology, it has created another caveat saying if you build a dam, you also build a protected area over the dam, throwing out more people than the dam is throwing it out in the first place. If you look at Lower Subansiri Dam, it allegedly throws out about 250 families. Some people over there would dispute and say it's 500 families. The sanctuary that is to be created actually throws out 21 villages of the area.
People, which should be really the prime concern. Most of them live on community land according to their customary law, while the Indian land laws recognize only individual proprietary ownership. Now, how do you reconcile those two? Where people take, for example, I interviewed one of the tribes in Arunachal Pradesh, which will be affected by a dam, the Aka. They don't even have the concept of individual ownership. Now, you expect them to be displaced with not even compensation, will not even be counted among those displaced.
আমি যে বুজি পাইছো ইয়াত যদি সুবনশ্ৰীৰ ওপৰত এটা 2000 মেগাৱাটৰ জলবিদ্যুৎ প্ৰকল্প স্থাপন হয় ভৱিষ্যতে আমাৰ সুবনশ্ৰী উপত্যকাবাসী কেৱল মানুহে নহয় ইয়াত থকা সমগ্ৰ জীৱ-জন্তু আৰু গছ-গছনি সুবনশ্ৰী উপত্যকা বাদেও আমাৰ ওৱৰ্ল্ড হেৰিটেজ চেণ্টাৰ মাজুলী নেশ্যনেল পাৰ্ক কাজিৰঙা সবৰে অস্তিত্ব এদিন বিপদাপন্ন হ'ব
way back in 70s while this Kaptai was built in Chittagong Hills, roughly 60,000 families were displaced, and all of them are Chakmas, and they found no place and they have come to this part of country, and up to now they are not treated well and facing a lot of problem in this area. If one dam, which is Kaptai, can create a problem of 60,000 families, we have a plan in Northeast by Government of India to build 163 odd dams, which is day by day increasing in numbers.
Most conflicts in this region are around land, be it the Karbi Kuki conflict, the Boro-Santal conflict, the Naga-Kuki, take any conflict, they are around land. There is encroachment on their land by immigrants. Their land has been taken over without any records. Now, you expect more of it to happen. We know, for example, that over the last 50 years, something like 50% of the land acquired in Assam for development projects is common land, but there are absolutely no records kept.
পূৰ্বপুৰুষত আমাৰ ইয়াত বহুত খেতি হৈছিলে 1 বিঘা খেতিত 60 মুন ধান পাইছিলে হা আৰু 10 পুৰা জুনে কৰিছে এইটো 1 বেগ পাইছিলে এইটো আমাৰ এইটো 1 নম্বৰ মানে নাম জ্বলোৱা জায়গা আছে ধানৰ কাৰণে খেতিৰ কাৰণে এইটো বিদস্ত হোৱাৰ কাৰণে এতিয়া আমালোকে বিদস্ত হৈ আছে আগতে 1 বিঘাত আমালোকে 60 বেগ পাইছিলে তেনেকুৱা জীৱন ধাৰণ কৰিছিলে লৰা ছোৱালীক পু পালন কৰিছিলো গৰুম পু পালন কৰিছিলো হা তেনেকুৱা আমালোকে হৈছিলে এতিয়া চাং মানে ভূমিকম্পৰ পৰা লাহে 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 তললৈ গৈ আছে আমালোকে জীৱনটো উদ্ধাৰ কৰিবৰ কাৰণে এইটোৱে কৈছো নহয় আগত কৈ দিছো নহয় আমি আপোনাৰ লগত মজদুৰি কৰিবলৈ যায়
Tali Valley Sanctuary, World Second Biodiversity Hotspot. ইয়াত যেতিয়া যধে মতে গছ গছনি কাটি শেষ কৰি দিছে তাৰ প্ৰভাৱটো তাত থকা বন্যপ্ৰাণীখিনি পৰিব এটা এলিফেন্ট কৰিডৰ আছে তাতে সেই এলিফেণ্ট কৰিডৰটো ইতিমধ্যে প্ৰভাৱ পৰিছেই কাৰণ দুটা হাতী পোৱালি তাত উঠি আহিছে তাৰ আগতে তেওঁলোকে কৈছে কোনো এলিফেণ্ট কৰিডৰ নাই যিটো আছে তাৰ ডেমৰ কাৰণে একো এফেক্ট নপৰে আমি কি দেখিছোঁ যে কেইদিনমানৰ পিছতে হাতী পোৱালি উঠি আহিবলৈ পালে মানে তেওঁলোকে কথাবিলাক ছাপ্ৰেছ কৰিছে প্ৰপাৰ ইনভেষ্টিগেশ্যন কৰা নাই যদি জানিছেও জানি লুকুৱাইছে তেওঁলোকৰ কিবা স্বাৰ্থৰ কাৰণে NSPC এই সংস্থাটোৱে ইয়াত যিটো প্ৰজেক্ট বনাব লৈছে তাৰ পৰা লাভ কাৰ হ'ব আমাৰ নে তেওঁলোকৰ যদি আমাৰ লাভৰ কাৰণে আহিছে তেনেহ'লে যিখিনি আমাৰ লোকচান হৈছে সেইখিনি আমাৰ পৰা কিয় লুকুৱাব লাগে কৈছে যে আমাৰ বন্যপ্ৰাণীৰ ওপৰত লোকচান নপৰে বন্যপ্ৰাণী নাই কিন্তু আমি জানো তাত চবেই আছে বহুত বিৰল প্ৰজাতিৰ উদ্ভিদ আছে বিৰল প্ৰজাতিৰ জন্তু আছে বিৰল প্ৰজাতিৰ মাছ আছে কিন্তু তেওঁলোকে কৈছে এইবিলাক নাই কি কাৰণে লুকুৱাব লগা হ'ল নিশ্চয় তেওঁলোকৰ কিছু আমাতকৈ পৰা লুকুৱাই ৰখা কিছুমান স্বাৰ্থ আছে
You must have seen all greeny hills are all around. As a result of setting up of these big mega bunch, this might get destroyed. This is what is our apprehension. Another factor, there is massive deforestation. Our thinking is that we must be able to regenerate forest in this particular area so that the water cannot roll down at great speeds. It will face some sort of obstructions. And over a period of time, the groundwater level will come up.
যেতিয়া ইয়াতে ফৰেষ্ট ক্লিয়াৰেন্স পাইছিল তাৰ আগতে হয়তো তেওঁলোকে জানি আহিছিল যে আমি ফৰেষ্ট ক্লিয়াৰেন্স পামেই কাৰণ আমি দেখিছোঁ ফৰেষ্ট ক্লিয়াৰেন্স পোৱাৰ আগতেই তেওঁলোকে ইয়াত হাউচিং কলনি বনালে পাৰ্মানেণ্ট ব্ৰিজ বনালে আৰু ক্লিয়াৰেন্স পোৱাৰ প্ৰায় 3-4 দিনৰ পিছতে এখন কেনেকৈ RCC ব্ৰিজ অপেন কৰিছে ইয়াৰ পৰা আমি স্থানীয় মানুহ এইটোৱে বুজিছোঁ যে মিনিষ্ট্ৰী অফ ফৰেষ্ট এনভাইৰনমেণ্ট NSPC তেওঁলোকৰ হৈ ইয়াৰ পৰিৱেশৰ ওপৰত অধ্যয়ন কৰা ৱাপকোজ নামৰ সংস্থাটো তেওঁলোকৰ মাজত ভিতৰুৱা বুজাবুজি আছে যাৰ কাৰণে NSPC ইমানেই কনফিডেন্স তেওঁলোকে ক্লিয়াৰেন্স পোৱাৰ বহু দিনৰ আগতে ইয়াত পাৰ্মানেণ্ট কনষ্ট্ৰাকশ্যন আৰম্ভ কৰি দিয়ে
It's one of the 25 with Myanmar, one of the 25 mega biodiversity zones of the world and one of 18 biodiversity hotspots. Not enough study has been made and the type of an EIA's environmental impact assessment we have seen are just miserable. The question I am asking is whether the planners are aware of the geology of the area. I am not a geologist, but experts will tell you that all the plans for dams, most plans I have seen, are based on the small rivers of Europe. One, they are small, very small. Two, they belong to the tertiary age.
1997 চনত 1997 চনত ডিজেমৰ এটা পাৰ্টি ডিৰেক্টৰেট অফ জিঅ'লজি এণ্ড মাইনিং আসাম গুৱাহাটীৰ পৰা এটা পাৰ্টি আহি পেলাই তাত গেৰুকাত কেম্প কৰিছিলে গেৰুকাত কেম্প কৰি থকা অৱস্থাত তাত মই এজন জিঅ'লজিষ্টৰ লগ পাইছোঁ যাৰ নাম কি হেমন্ত কুমাৰ বৰগোহাঁই হেমন্ত কুমাৰ বৰগোহাঁই জিঅ'লজিষ্ট আসামৰ তেখেতে মোক ক'লে তেতিয়া অৰুণাচলে খুব হুলস্থুল কৰিছে ধেমাজি তোমাৰ 33 কিলোমিটাৰ ৰেডিয়াছ কিমান তললৈ যাব বুলি আচ্ছা এই সময়তে মই মানে তাত থাকোঁতে গেৰুকাত থাকোঁতে লগ পাওঁতে হেৰিয়ে মানে জিঅ'লজিজনে ক'লে যে দলে এটা কথা আপোনালোকে এটা পাব্লিক মিটিং কৰক কেনেকুৱা পাব্লিক মিটিং এই ডেমটোৰ যিটো ফাৰ্ষ্ট মেচিন ফেৰিঘাটটোৰ যিটো ইলেক্ট্ৰিক পোষ্ট এটা আছে তাৰ তলেদিয়ে আৰ্থকুৱেক লাইনটো আছে তাৰ তলেদি আৰ্থকুৱেক লাইনটো পুৱা পশ্চিমাকৈ আছে যদি ডেম হৈ যায় কেনেবাকৈ যদি আৰ্থকুৱেক হৈ যায় তা ফলাফল বহুত বেয়া হ'ব গতিকে ৰিইনভেষ্টিগেশ্যন কৰিবৰ কাৰণে আপোনালোকে পাব্লিক মিটিং কল কৰক
True that these new dams have to be designed for earthquake resistance, even 8.5 Richter scale earthquakes. And then also all other concerns have to be met. It can be done. Technologically, it can be done.
If you talk to the best of engineers who are working on these dams, they say we've done this plan, we've done this plan, we've done this plan, it will never happen. But the fact is that never happens has never been tested. Indian seismological research has never been competent enough even to predict close by 500 square kilometer area small seismic changes happening. So even prediction ability is not there. Then you have huge budgets coming up in the name of so-called mitigation, post dam breakage mitigation, early alert warning system, which if you look at it, if they've not been able to do it in Delhi with Yamuna overflowing into the next house, I don't think they'll be able to do it in the northeast.
Looking at what has happened recently, the tsunami of last year, the earthquake of Kashmir, where do we go from there? And an earthquake of 1950 in Assam, which has changed the very formation, or last year's massive floods. Yes, last year's massive floods, the mini tsunami in Goalpara district, which killed 500 people within a few minutes.
People of Assam has seen 2004 flood, which has devastated the whole civil society. 15 million people on the roads, on the highland, on the railway track, on the embankments. You cannot imagine what happened in 2004. And similar things will keep on happening if we go on building dams after dams.
We have the Brahmaputra, which is one of the largest in the world in terms of flow, and its basin is also very large, and really truly international basin in the country, because it spreads over three major countries of China, India and Bangladesh, along with Bhutan also, parts of Bhutan. So half of the watershed in China, 1/3 in India, and the rest in Bhutan and Bangladesh.
We are talking of a dam which is not the water, which is not controlled by our country. So there is a question of also national security. The water is under Chinese territory, is coming from Chinese territory. So you talk about Siang, you talk about Kameng, you talk about Subansiri, you talk about any water on which we are going to make dams is not under control of Indian territory.
If God forbid, but if there is a war between India and China, and you have these huge dams there, all that the Chinese Air Force has to do is to come and bomb a dam like Subansiri. Water comes gushing down. Everybody, including the army, is caught in this massive natural calamity, and the Chinese can just walk in and have their mouth eye somewhere in Bombdil or Tawang on the second day of the war.
It's a question of national security now, because the water does not originate in India. It's coming from Tibet. Everybody, every policy level people, every Indian citizen should think over it. The world community should think over it.
So defense point of view, which is used, this defense point of view is used as an argument that we should not do anything particularly in Andamans because it's important for defense. But here, that argument is turned on the head. Well, we may be having a good relation with China now, but in the Home Ministry or the Defense Ministry report, China is always projected as a threat perception.
Now suppose if China don't releases their water, these dams will be simple structure. And if they release maximum water, these dams will wash away. So they can fight war against India by releasing water, because these dams will become bombs. And ultimately it will hit the community downstream. It will start hitting right from Dhemaji, Dhakwakhana, even this treasure, Majuli Island, will be washed away. We have severe threat up to Bangladesh. We have severe threat in the whole of Brahmaputra Valley.
alternately, it will be better if a rethinking is given instead of a mega project, if some small projects are proposed at the catchment area of each and every stream, and electricity can be produced. This is what is our appeal now, and the local people, they will not suffer.
In terms of whether a big dam is feasible or not feasible in Northeast, an interesting fact or nugget of information to understand is that Indian government got surveys done for about 200 different dams, large, big, huge dams in Northeast. Not one single survey was ever done to see if any micro dam can be built in the area. Therefore, the purpose has never been to provide electricity or need of the Northeast region, but constantly look at taking out power from that area. Now, the economy of scale, they do manufacture at one point of time, but it does create a huge scare, because if you look, it's not just the cost of dam that is important, it's also the cost of transmission and the cost of putting up a transmission line and the ecological impact of the transmission line. Now, rough estimates done by the Power Grid Corporation show that they'll spend about 4 times more on the power grid system for Northeast than they spend actually on the dam. Now, take the Lower Subansiri Dam case. They started off with saying about 700 crores. It's landed up being 2,000 crores already. Price escalations, this, that, whatever excuses, environmental,
overrun, time overrun,
everything. Now, if the same is then multiplied off into the power grid system, we can understand where the costs are going.
By and large, you think the big dams would make for sensible economics and usher in some new phase of development, and also will meet India's power needs?
Oh yes, certainly. I mean, there is no doubt that we have to harness every possible resources, be it coal. Coal, of course, has a lot of problems as far as the environment is concerned, greenhouse problems, as you know. The hydropower is the best resources because it doesn't have a pollution effect, and it is a self-sustaining kind of a thing, and therefore it has to be harnessed, but the concerns have to be addressed.
Not as economically viable as people would seem to argue, yeah?
It is really not. At times you really feel we've not been told enough about what the real costs are. And this is when you're taking a pure economic cost. You're not even considering the ecological cost of replacing a natural forest, which you can't in the first place. You can only
the social cost.
Or the social cost, which Indian government is so blind to that we should not even start discussing it, because I mean, if you look at the Lower Subansiri case, they say we'll compensate the families. They decide to give them 10 crore rupees. The 10 crore rupees is passed from the central government to the state government to the NHPC, and yet in last 2 years not a single penny has gone down to any village. This is just 10 crore rupees. You believe that societies can be displaced from their roots by giving them cash as doles to settle in new areas. It has an ethical problem. It even has an economic insensitivity to it.
So the cultural, social, environmental, economic, all issues need to be addressed with equal weightage. Not that you put the weightage only on the economic aspect of it, which will be very myopic, it will be short-sighted, and which will be very colonially approach, which will be an approach which will be not valid at this context of time in an egalitarian society, in a democratic setup that we have, where everybody, we talk about ecological security, we talk about social security, we talk about environmental security, we talk about food security, we talk about human rights security. So with all these goals before us, we should not lose sight of other goals and only concentrate on the economic aspect of it and think only of the engineering solution. Since there is so much of uncertainty about having big projects, big dams, we still do not know. And on that scale, it has never been attempted. Even on a smaller scale, very few attempts have been done to generate power. We don't have power even for lighting our rooms, actually, houses, in the evening time. So with that type of development now, if we think of like more than 200 mega dams now in the north, I think this is utopian. This is unrealistic, means this is unacceptable. No sane person probably will venture that. We should not go for something which is gigantic, which is fabulous, which is a global scale, as people say it. But see, that has got tremendous uncertainty involved in it, and its repercussions, its impact will be very harmful. And so we cannot jeopardize the life of millions of people. We cannot jeopardize the life of the oncoming, incoming generations. We cannot do that. So I think this is the solution for us.
We civil society organizations have raised our voice. We are organizing ourselves. We are ready to fight for it because it is massive. Government of India's funny system is always assessing upstream in the impact assessments. So environmental impact assessment also is a big agenda where ruptures of basic rights are being taken place.
কিন্তু প্ৰতিজন মানুহে প্ৰতিজন কৃষকে প্ৰতিজন জনজাতি মানুহে বুজি পায় প্ৰতিখন গাঁৱৰ মানুহে বুজি পায় যে ডেমটো হলে মাপকাৰ হ'ব ইয়াৰ আগতে সুবনশ্ৰী প্ৰজেক্টৰ বিৰোধিতা কৰা সুবনশ্ৰী উপত্যকাবাসী যেনেকৈ জীয়াই আছে তেনেকৈ জীয়াই থাকিবলৈ দিয়ক আমাক জীৱনৰ মূল্যত জীবনৰ বিনিময়ত আমাক বিদ্যুৎ নালাগে
আমেরিকা প্রেসিডেন্টের নাম কি কব পারেন
জর্জ বুশ
আচ্ছা আমার গোগামুখ কোড জানে
হ্যাঁ
গোগামুখ
না জানো
সুবনশ্রী
Subansiri. No. Yeah. I live in Satgaon.
Satgaon.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the President of America? Name?
George Bush.
And do you know the name? Do you have the name of Subansiri?
Subansiri. Ruby Hondikoy.
What থাকা তুমি?
মই শিৱসাগৰ।
শিৱসাগৰ। আচ্ছা ভাৰতৰ প্ৰধানমন্ত্ৰীৰ নাম কি?
কি কৈছা?
ভাৰতৰ প্ৰধানমন্ত্ৰীৰ নাম কি?
হেৰি কি কয় মনমোহন সিং
গোগামুখ ক'ত জানা
গোগামুখ নাই গম নাপাওঁ
সুবনশ্ৰী ক'ত সুবনশ্ৰী ক'ত জানা
নাই জানো সৰি
আমেৰিকা প্ৰেসিডেন্টের নাম কি
জর্জ বুশ
গোগামুখ ক'ত জানা
গোগামুখ ধেমাজি বিল
আচ্ছা তাত সুবনশ্ৰী ক'ত জানা
নাজানো
प्रधानमंत्री नाम
हाँ
प्रधानमंत्री नाम
प्रधानमंत्री मनमोहन सिंह
अमेरिका प्रेसिडेंट
अमेरिकार प्रेसिडेंट কি আছিল বে জর্জ বুশ ডব্লিউ বুশ ওকে
আপনি জানেন
এক্সকিউজ মি মই এরা কোর নো
এটো আমার টিভি চ্যানেল
কোর নো রেকর্ড
আচ্ছা সুবনশ্রী কোড জানে
কোর না সরি
তাতে এখন ড্যাম হই আছে জানে
এটা জানো গম পাইছি
কিহৰ কাৰণে ড্যামটো
নাই সরি নো আইডিয়া
সুবনশ্ৰী কোড
সুবনশ্ৰী নদী হয়
তাতে এখন ড্যাম হই আছে জানে
হ্যাঁ পারে
আচ্ছা আপনি জানেন সুবনশ্ৰী কোড
অৰুণাচল ডিস্ট্রিক্ট
তাতে কি হই আছে জানে
না
ড্যাম বই এটা হই আছে জানে
না জানো প্লিজ ডোন্ট আস্ক মি এনিথিং
Wind swaying, dancing with the woods, with a shower of droplets and the thunder of plains. Plains of thought upon thought, concentrating the rigor in the penetrative center of souls, of hanging doorways and clouds counting their musical footsteps on the rhythms of grass. Pure, green grass. Green in its very purity, pure down to its primitive roots and siblings. Green engulfs desires. We need to bring out the green. We need to see green skies, green candle flames, green shouts of ecstatic, soulful joys and tears. Tears of green dreams. I flashed through dreams, in and out and in, figuring out a way in the tornado of souls.